After Tahad's monster day at the NBA Combine, should Auburn start to get a little nervous? It's time for another Barn Takeover.
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off. And you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie Five.
Yes, sir. We're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie Five, and we are ready to get after it. It's time for another Barn Takeover, which is one of the best segments of the week where we allow members of the barnauburn.com to submit questions. I'll pick out the best ones, and then we dive into it. We're going to talk about Tahad. We're going to talk about who's going to be the leading rusher. We're going to talk about single-season receiving records. We're going to talk about recruiting, everything today based off of the content that the members of the barnauburn.com submit. So before we do that, let's give a quick shout-out to mybookie.ag. Use coupon code BARN, B-A-R-N, for a 50% deposit bonus up to $1,000. Whatever you give them, they're going to give you 50% of that back in free play to go hit the sports book, win big, and they give you a $10 casino chip as well. So a lot of fun to be had there. Easy deposits, easy withdrawals. It's mybookie.ag. Without further ado, let's dive into it. And there's a lot of talk about this from yesterday. Do you still think Tahad is coming back? I, along with a lot of others, have pretty much expected Tahad to come back. You can't a lot of times it's hard to outplay your measurables, and he's a smaller guard in a league that's got a lot of freak athletes. Tahad's really athletic. And up until, I think a lot of people started freaking out when he had one of the highest verticals. Well, that's no surprise. Are you really shocked that he was going to have one of the highest verticals? I mean, you've seen the kid windmill dunk from like the free throw line. I don't think that really didn't shock me at all. But when he went off in the scrimmage for 23 points, 8 assists, and only 1 turnover, I think it started getting people a little bit nervous. Look, one of the things that I and most people that follow NBA basketball are concerned about with Tahad at the next level is defense. Because, I mean, the point guard position in the NBA is just full of creative players. Like it's unreal. Can he play defense at the next level? And I'm going to be honest, I think he even created several turnovers. I don't know his defensive efficiency numbers, but from the looks of it, it did look like he could at least hang a little bit with some of the top talent at the point guard, at least in that particular scrimmage. Now, how does that translate into the league? Who knows? Still, there's 30 picks in the first round of the NBA draft. I looked at a ton of mock drafts, not before yesterday, post yesterday. So basically mock drafts after the big combine day. And I could only find one that had him projected in the first round. And I think it was Yahoo, and it had him like 25th to the Magic. It's still, he was 6 foot, basically on the dot. And I know there's some shorter point guards in the league, but that's still going to be something that people are going to be a little bit unsure about. It just is what it is. He was shot really good from 3. I think he was 4 of 8 from 3. So that's not necessarily an issue. Ball handling is never going to be an issue. Can he keep the turnovers to a minimum? He did that. He's checking a lot of boxes, but still size is something that that's nothing he can't change that. And I think it's going to be an obstacle. I looked at the NBA salary slots for the first round, and basically from pick about 25 to 30, you're making right around $2 million. And I think he'd probably make something close to that at Auburn. But your first round are typically guaranteed contracts. So if he can get a first round guarantee, which he said it would have to be a guarantee, just be prepared. He's probably going to go. Will he get that guarantee? That's going to be the question. And that's going to be tough. I think that's going to be tough because he is legitimately like right there on the borderline. So do I still think Tahad's coming back? But when I actually answer this question right away on the barn, I said, there's nothing that's changed so far. Like as far as what I'm hearing, how Auburn's feeling. But that was before that scrimmage. So we're going to have to let this thing play out. It's going to go a little bit longer. And then we should know our fate. If he doesn't come back, boy, oh boy, we're in a world of hurt. But we'll see what happens. He's having a great – I think we need to just continue to wish him the best and root for him because it does nothing but look good for Auburn. But it would definitely put Auburn in a bind should he stay in the draft. So let's move on. Does Singleton have the best wide receiver season of Auburn football history? And if that happens – where does that put Jackson in passing history? Well, I don't think those things don't necessarily have to be related. I remember, Ronnie Daniels had his big 1,000-yard season and, Ben Lear didn't, light it up from what I remember. So those don't necessarily have to coincide. It's hard to say because I think Singleton's going to be a do-it-all player. And he may have a ton of all-purpose yards, like maybe taking some rushes out of the backfield, returning punts, catching balls out of the backfield, but he does have, statistically, he had one of the better years catching deep balls his freshman year. So that's hard to say. I think Cam Coleman ends up having more yards. So, but what does the best season of a wide receiver in Auburn football history really mean? Is it just statistically receiving yards per catch, touchdowns? There's so many aspects to that. I'm going to say no just because of all the other talent. I'm going to say it's going to cannibalize, but I think he's going to have a really good season. It's going to be spectacular. You're going to have several receivers have, I think, good seasons. And again, I don't think that's necessarily related to Jackson, just Singleton. But I think with all the receivers, I think he's got a really good chance to, be the single season passing leader. But that's not really that huge of an achievement. I mean, I think it's like 3,200 yards or something like that. Or maybe you got to throw for 3,300 yards to break that record. So it's not like it's 4,500 yards, like something crazy. So I think Jackson has a better chance to break the record for passing than Singleton does for receiving, just because of the nature of that room, that wide receiver room, and how good it is. Another wide receiver question. Who do you think our top 3 wide receivers are this year in regards to just receiving yards? Well, I just mentioned the first 2. Cam Coleman, Eric Singleton should be 1 and 2. 3 should be Malcolm Simmons. It should be. But I'm curious to see how you utilize all these guys. And where you line them up. Because I could see Horatio Fields having a big year. I mean, Hugh Freeze said point blank, he's the KLS of this wide receiver room. If that's the case, that means he may have some kind of chemistry with Jackson to where, he can rely on him a little bit more. So could he slide in there and overtake at number 3? Whoever comes in third, that's going to be a fun battle to watch, I think, because I think the other 2 are locks to have big seasons. Man, you remember when you were playing college football and you had a bunch of good wide receivers, you recruited a bunch of good wide receivers, and how hard it was to throw to every single one. You want to throw to all of them, and you end up getting yourself in a bind. that because you're throwing to receivers that may not necessarily be open because you don't want to keep throwing to the same one every time. What a fun problem to have. But it does become sort of an issue at times, figuring out who's going to get the ball and how you can get the ball to everybody. It's going to be wild. But I think 1 and 2 should be easy. And then that number 3, there's about 3 or 4 guys that could win it. So we'll see what happens. Before we jump to a few more questions, let's give a quick shout out to rowback.com. Use coupon code BUTTON20 to take 20% off your order. Get loaded up on summer gear. They're dropping new polos seemingly every single day. They feel good. They look good. And I think you'll definitely turn some heads with anything out of their selection. So if you like prints, they got them. If you like stripes, they got them. If you like solids, they got those too. And then they got swim trunks. If you still want to try to stretch out hoodie season like me, they got a pile of hoodies, and all of them look fantastic and feel fantastic. Check them out. It's rowback.com. We'll be back right after this. This is a great question. Who has the better rushing stats this year among running backs? Auburn does not seem to have that true lead back. That there's not that, like, I guess, clear-cut heir apparent. Where every single year we seem to kind of know who the next guy is going to be. This year you don't really know, and it's going to be at least to start off, you feel like it's going to be a true committee. So which one of those guys emerges at all, if anybody emerges, and may have the better rushing stats? I think ultimately Damari is going to end up being your more feature back. But I wouldn't be shocked if Jeremiah Cobb had maybe like more yards per carry. And I have no idea what to think about Darrell Robinson because he hasn't practiced yet. After about the first few fall camp practices, this answer could change. But I think Damari probably leads in overall yards. And I think maybe Cobb leads in maybe yards per carry. And there's going to be a ton of people that say Jeremiah Cobb should get more carries than Damari, or there's going to be a bunch of fighting about it. But it's the situation that we've always hoped for, really. Auburn beats running backs into the ground up until last year. That's been the calling card. Why can't we platoon it a little bit more like everybody else? Well, we'll get to this year for sure. We'll see how we as fans handle it. Would landing Emmanuel Iheanacho be the biggest signing of the Hugh Freeze era? On multiple levels, yes. That's an easy yes. Number one, he'd be the highest rated player. I think Cam Coleman ended up being somewhere around like maybe number 6 overall. And I think Emmanuel is around like 4 or 5. Let me check really quick. Now, Cam Coleman may be, he's number 3 overall. Yeah, there's no doubt. Emmanuel Iheanacho would be the biggest one for a number of reasons. Number one, you prove that you're ready to play. You're not ready. You're willing to play ball, and you can go get one of the top offensive tackles in the class. The 5-star offensive tackle that's been elusive to Auburn for quite some time. It's the highest rated player that Hugh Freeze would have signed. I think on multiple levels, it would be the most important. I'm afraid, though, the chances, I don't want to say they're slipping because he's still got to visit. So we'll see what happens. He did get some predictions to Oregon, and that's because you're splitting hairs on who the number 1 tackle is, but he's technically the number 2 tackle, but he's the number 3 overall player. So there's 2 really, really good offensive tackles, and that particular offensive tackle, a lot of people thought might go to Oregon. He goes to Miami. So this makes it seem like the path for Emmanuel a lot more clear to go to Oregon. He started getting some predictions yesterday. So Auburn still got a visit and still got a chance. If you pull it off, hands down, the best recruit, the most important recruit of the Hugh Freeze era by far. Should Auburn be worried about the tight end position for this upcoming year? I'm going to say yes and no, and that's not a cop-out, okay? And I'll explain why. From the standpoint of the way Auburn utilized the tight end in the passing game last year, there's nobody that even remotely comes close to Rivaldo Fairweather. Rivaldo Fairweather was just a 6'4", 250-pound wide receiver most of the time last year. He was a very subpar blocker. So he was your receiver. I mean, he was just big. Just call him the big slot, big receiver, extra big receiver. That guy doesn't really exist right now on Auburn's roster. Hollis Davidson may have a shot, but he's really young. He's got to put on some weight, and he was injured and out all spring. So let's just assume he's not going to be ready to go by the time kickoff comes, because that's really your only shot at having another chance at a quote unquote Rivaldo type receiving tight end. So in that sense, yes, there is a fair bit of concern. Okay. Now, I don't think it's going to be a real concern though, because of how good your wide receiver room is and how you don't necessarily have to depend on. I don't think you're going to have to depend on the tight end. I think you can use different formations and different sets to get these receivers open, and in different ways to get them open over the middle just as well as you could a tight end. So anything from the receiving standpoint, I'm not really concerned about. I don't think there's anything that a tight end gives you that this wide receiver room can't give you. From a blocking standpoint, I don't think you hardly see any drop-off. I think you got a number of guys. Brandon Frazier, you've moved Tate. His last name's escaping me, but you've moved Tate over there to tight end. He's trimmed up, lost some weight. I think Ryan Gee could be a really good run blocker as a true freshman. I think you got multiple options there as that sort of H-back blocking tight end role. I don't think you're really going to miss anything there. So are there concerns? I think it just depends on what you expect out of the tight end room, or what you're expecting out of the tight end room. I think it's going to look different. So, yeah, I could see some concerns over receiving, but I just don't think that's going to be part of the plan this year. I don't think that's going to be a huge focus like it was last year to have Rivaldo out there in the formation every single play virtually lined up as a wide receiver. I don't think that's going to happen this year. So I hope that answered your question. A little bit, yes, I can see, but it's not super a concern to me, but because how good that wide receiver room is. Last one, I think this is a good question. I know Auburn would take multiple elite edge guys for this upcoming class, but how many of those guys do you think we can legitimately afford? And I'll say probably afford / how many of those guys can we get? You already have Hezekiah Harris locked in. He's 6'6", 230, 6'5", 230. Very, very talented kid. Could grow into a defensive end. You have 3 edges coming in this weekend, and then you still got Zion Lee out there that's scheduled for a visit. How many of those guys could Auburn take? I think honestly, if Auburn could get every single one of them, they would, just because of how incredibly gifted these guys are. But you got to be realistic. Like, that's 5 guys that are extremely elite. How many of those do you get? I think the most realistic answer is 2 or 3. I think Auburn stands in really good shape to get somebody. I mean, they already got Hezekiah Harris. I think you're in really good shape with Bryce Perry Wright. And I think you can maybe pick off one of the others. I mean, you got Trenton Henderson from Pensacola, who's been tied to Auburn for quite some time. I think he just got upgraded to a 5-star on 247. You would love to land Tank Jones. I think that one's going to be tough. Again, Auburn did pull off a couple of monumental wins against Alabama in the Mobile area. St. Paul's is a little bit of a different animal. That one's going to be tough. So out of the 5 guys that Auburn's sort of tied to, I think you could realistically get 3 of them. I think you could get – you obviously already got Hezekiah Harris. I think you could get Trenton Henderson, and I think you could get Bryce Perry Wright. And I think if you get those guys, you are freaking ecstatic. You just landed some incredibly athletic defensive guys that could play multiple positions. You don't have to pigeonhole them to all lining up behind each other at edge, fighting for snaps. Those guys, you get in here and you just figure it out. I'm not saying Auburn's going to get all 3, but I think if to answer that question directly, I think Auburn could, if they want to come to Auburn, I think Auburn could get 3 of those guys. So we'll see what happens. Another great round of questions for the Barn Takeover. I know some of y'all, that's your favorite segment of the week. We're hopefully going to have a Friendship Friday. I have a long schedule. Last week got off. We had someone that took a different job and made it tough to record. So we were trying to reshuffle, and I think we're going to get back on track. I got some personal issues, family issues that I'm taking care of today. We'll see if we can get it in recorded tonight and get it up tomorrow. I'm going to push to try to make it happen because that's been a lot of fun, and it's great for members of the Barn to be able to be showcased. So, guys, I really appreciate you listening. If you like the video, like it. If you like the channel, subscribe to it. You know we're going to be back again soon. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening, and drive home safely.